Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ekadasanipta. 455 Posaka Jataka. Though far away, etc. This story the master told while dwelling in Jetavana about an elder who had his mother to support. The circumstances of the event are like those of the Sama birth. On this occasion also the master said, addressing the brethren, "Be not wroth, brethren, with this man. Wise men there have been of old, who even when born from the womb of animals, being parted asunder from their mothers, refused for 7 days to take food, pining away, and even when they were offered food fit for a king, did but reply, Without my mother I will not eat, yet took food again when they saw the mother." So saying, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta reigned in Benares, the Bodhisattva was born as an elephant in the Himalaya region. All white he was, a magnificent beast, and a herd of 80,000 elephants surrounded him, but his mother was blind. He would give his elephants the sweet wild fruit, so sweet, to convey to her, yet to her they gave none, but themselves ate all of it. When he made inquiry, and heard news of this, said he, "I will leave the herd, and cherish my mother." So in the night season, unknown to the other elephants, taking his mother with him, he departed to Mount Kandarana, and there he placed his mother in a cave of the hills, hard by a lake, and cherished her. Now a certain forester, who dwelt in Benares, lost his way, and being unable to get his bearings, began to lament with a great noise. Hearing this noise, the Bodhisattva thought to himself, "There is a man in distress, and it is not meet that he come to harm while I am here." So he drew near to the man, but the man fled in fear. Seeing which, the elephant said to him, "Ho man! You have no need to fear me. Do not flee, but say why you walk about weeping." "My lord," said the man, "I have lost my way, this 7 days gone." Said the elephant, "Fear not, O man, for I will put you in the path of men." Then he made the man sit on his back, and carried him out of the forest, and then returned. This wicked man determined to go into the city, and tell the king. So he marked the trees, and marked the hills, and then made his way to Benares. At that time the king's state elephant had just died. The king caused it to be proclaimed by beat of drum, "If any man has in any place seen an elephant fit and proper for the king's riding, let him declare it." Then this man came before the king, and said, "I, my lord, have seen a splendid elephant, white all over and excellent, fit for the king's riding. I will show the way, send but with me the elephant trainers, and you shall catch him." The king agreed, and sent with the man a forester and a great troop of followers. The man went with him, and found the Bodhisattva feeding in the lake. When the Bodhisattva saw the forester, he thought, "This danger has doubtless come from none other than that man. But I am very strong, I can scatter even 1,000 elephants, in anger I am able to destroy all the beasts that carry the army of a whole kingdom. But if I give way to anger, my virtue will be marred. So today I will not be angry, not even though pierced with knives." With this resolve, bowing his head he remained immovable. Down into the lotus lake went the forester, and seeing the beauty of his points, said, "Come, my son." Then seizing him by the trunk, and like a silver rope it was, he led him in 7 days to Benares. When the Bodhisattva's mother found that her son came not, she thought that he must have been caught by the king's nobles. "And now," she wailed, "all these trees will go on growing, but he will be far away," and she repeated 2 stanzas. "Though far away this elephant should go, still olivine and kutaja will grow. Grain, grass, and oleander, lilies white. On sheltered spots the bluebells dark still blow. Somewhere that royal elephant must go, full fed by those whose breast and body show. All gold bedecked, that king or prince may ride, fearless to triumph o'er the mail-clad foe." Now the trainer, while he was yet in the way, sent on a message to tell the king. And the king caused the city to be decorated. The trainer led the Bodhisattva into a stable all adorned and decked out with festoons and with garlands, and surrounding him, with a screen of many colors, sent word to the king. And the king took all manner of fine food and caused it to be given to the Bodhisattva. "But not a bit would he eat, without my mother, I will eat nothing," said he. The king besought him to eat, repeating the 3rd stanza. "Come, take a morsel, elephant, and never pine away. There's many a thing to serve your king that you shall do one day." Hearing this, the Bodhisattva repeated the 4th stanza. "Nay, she by Mount Kandarana, poor blind and wretched one, beats with a foot on some tree root, without her royal son." The king said the 5th stanza to ask his meaning. "Who is he by Mount Kandarana, what blind and wretched one? beats with a foot on some tree root, without her royal son. To which the other replied in the 6th stanza. My mother by Kandarana, a blind, a wretched one, beats with her foot on some tree root for lack of me, her son. And hearing this, the king gave him freedom, reciting the 7th stanza. This mighty elephant, who feeds his mother, let go free. And let him to his mother go, and to all his family. The 8th and 9th stanzas are those of the Buddha in his perfect wisdom. The elephant from prison freed, the beast set free from chain. With words of consolation went back to the hills again. Then from the cool and limpid pool, where elephants frequent, he with his trunk drew water, and his mother all besprent. But the mother of the Bodhisattva thought it had begun to rain, and repeated the 10th stanza, rebuking the rain. Who brings unseasonable rain, what evil deity? For he is gone, my own, my son, who used to care for me. Then the Bodhisattva repeated the 11th stanza, to reassure her. Rise, mother. Why should you there lie? Your son has come. Vaideha, Kosa's glorious king, has sent me safely home. And she returned thanks to the king by repeating the last stanza. Long live that king. Long may he bring his realm's prosperity. Who freed that son who ever hath done so great respect to me. The king was pleased with the Bodhisattva's goodness, and he built a town not far from the lake, and did continual service to the Bodhisattva and to his mother. Afterwards, when his mother died, and the Bodhisattva had performed her obsequies, he went away to a monastery called Karandaka. In this place 500 sages came and dwelt, and the king did the like service for them. The king had a stone image made in the figure of the Bodhisattva, and great honor he paid to this. There the inhabitants of all India year by year gathered together, to perform what was called the Elephant Festival. When the master had ended this discourse, he declared the truths, and identified the birth. Now at the conclusion of the truths the brother who supported his mother was established in the fruit of the first path. At that time, Ananda was the king, the lady Mahamaya was the she-elephant, and I was myself the elephant that fed his mother. Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ekadasanipta. 456 Junha Jataka. O King of Men, etc. This story the master told while dwelling at Jetavana about the boons received by Elder Ananda. During the 20 years of his first Buddhahood the Blessed One's attendants were not always the same, sometimes Elder Nagasamala, sometimes Najada, Upavana, Sunakada, Kunda, Sagala, sometimes Migya waited upon the Blessed One. One day the Blessed One said to the brethren, Now I am old, brethren, and when I say, let us go in this way, some of the brotherhood go by another way, some drop my bowl and robe on the ground. Choose out one brother to attend always upon me. Then they uprose all, beginning with Elder Sariputta, and laid their joined hands to their heads, crying, I will serve you, sir, I will serve you. But he refused them, saying, Your prayer is forestalled. Enough. Then the brethren said to the elder Ananda, Do you, friend, ask for the post of attendant? The elder said, If the Blessed One will not give me the robe which he himself has received, if he will not give me his dole of food, if he will not grant me to dwell in the same fragrant cell, if he will not have me with him to go where he is invited, but if the Blessed One will go with me where I am invited, if I shall be granted to introduce the company at the moment of coming, which comes from foreign parts and foreign countries to see the Blessed One, if I shall be granted to approach the Blessed One as soon as doubt shall arise, if whenever the Blessed One shall discourse in my absence he will repeat his discourse to me as soon as I shall return, then I will attend upon the Blessed One. These 8 boons he craved, 4 negative and 4 positive. And the Blessed One granted them to him. After that he attended continually upon his master for 25 years. So having obtained the preeminence in the 5 points, and having gained 7 blessings, blessing of doctrine, blessing of instruction, blessing of the knowledge of causes, blessing of inquiry as to one's good, blessing of dwelling in a holy place, blessing of enlightened devotion, blessing of potential Buddhahood, in the presence of the Buddha he received the heritage of 8 boons and became famous in the Buddha's religion, and shone as the moon in the heavens. One day they began to talk about it in the Hall of Truth. Friend, the Tathagata has satisfied Elder Ananda by granting his boons. The master entered and asked, "What are you speaking of, brethren, as ye sit here?" They told him. Then he said, "It is not now the first time, brethren, but in former days as now I satisfied Ananda with a boon, in former days as now, whatsoever he asked, I gave him." And so saying, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta reigned in Benares, a son of his named Prince Junha, or the Moonlight Prince, was studying at Takasila. One night, after he had been listening carefully to his teacher's instruction, he left the house of his teacher in the dark, and set out for home. A certain Brahmin had been seeking alms and was going home, and the prince, not perceiving him, ran up against the Brahmin, and broke his alms bowl with a blow of his arm. The Brahmin fell, with a cry. In compassion the prince turned round, and taking hold of the man's hands raised him to his feet. The Brahmin said, "Now, my son, you have broken my alms bowl, so give me the price of a meal." Said the prince, "I cannot now give you the price of a meal, Brahmin, but I am Prince Junha, son of the king of Kosa, and when I come to my kingdom, you may come to me and ask for the money." When his education was finished, he took leave of his teacher, and returning to Benares, showed his father what he had learnt. "I have seen my son before my death," said the king, "and I will see him king indeed." Then he sprinkled him and made him king. Under the name of King Junha the prince ruled in righteousness. When the Brahmin heard of it, he thought now he would recover the price of his meal. So to Benares he came, and saw the city all decorated, and the king moving in solemn procession rightwise around it. Taking his stand upon a high place, the Brahmin stretched out his hand, and cried, "Victory to the king!" The king passed by without looking at him. When the Brahmin found that he was not noticed, he asked an explanation by repeating the first stanza. "O king of men, hear what I have to say. Not without cause have I come here this day." 'Tis said, "O best of men, one should not pass a wandering Brahmin standing in the way." On hearing these words the king turned back the elephant with his jewelled gourd, and repeated the second stanza. "I heard, I stand, come Brahmin, quickly say. What cause it is has brought you here today? What boon is it that you would crave of me? That you are come to see me? Speak, I pray." What further king and Brahmin said to each other by way of question and answer, is told in the remaining stanzas. "Give me 5 villages, all choice and fine. 100 slave girls, 700 kine. More than 1,000 ornaments of gold. And 2 wives give me, of like birth with mine. Hast thou penance, Brahmin, dread to tell? Or hast thou many a charm and many a spell? Or goblins, ready your behest to do? Or any claim for having served me well? No penance have I, nor no charm and spell. No demons ready to obey me well. Nor any meed for service can I claim. But we have met before, the truth to tell. I cannot call to mind, in time past o'er, that I have ever seen thy face before. Tell me, I beg thee, tell this thing to me. When have we met, or where, in days of yore? In the fair city of Gandhara's king. Takasila, my lord, was our dwelling. There in the pitchy darkness of the night, shoulder to shoulder thou and I did fling. And as we both were standing there, O prince, a friendly talk between us straight begins. Then we together met, and only then. Nor ever once before, nor ever since. Whenever, Brahmin, a wise man has met a good man in the world, he should not let friendship once made or old acquaintance go for nothing, nor the thing once done forget. 'Tis fools deny the thing once done, and let old friendships fail of those they once have met. Many a deed of fools to nothing comes. They are ungrateful, and they can forget. But trusty men cannot forget the past. Their friendship and acquaintance ever fast. A trifle done by such is not disowned. Thus trusty men are grateful to the last. 5 villages I give thee, choice and fine. 100 slave girls and 700 kine. More than 1,000 ornaments of gold. And more, 2 wives of equal birth with thine. O king, thus is it when the good agree. As the full moon among the stars we see. Even so, O lord of Kosa, so am I. Now thou hast kept the bargain made with me. The Bodhisattva added great honor to him. When the master had ended this discourse, he said, "This is not the first time, brethren, that I have satisfied Ananda with boons, but I have done it before. With these words, he identified the birth. At that time Ananda was the Brahmin and I was myself the king.
Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ikadasanapada. 457. Dhamma Jataka. I do the right, etc. This story the master told while dwelling in Jetavana, how Devdatta was swallowed up in the earth. They gathered in the hall of truth to talk. Friend, Devdatta fell at enmity with the Tathagata, and was swallowed up in the earth. The master entering asked what they were talking of as they sat there. They told him. He replied, Now, brethren, he has been swallowed up in the earth because he dealt a blow at my victorious authority. But formerly he dealt a blow at the authority of right, and was swallowed up in the earth, and went on his way to nethermost hell. So saying, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king in Benares, the Bodhisattva was born into the world of sense as one of the gods, and was named Dhamma or right, while Devdatta was called Adhamma or wrong. As on the fast day of the full moon, in the evening when meals were done, men were sitting in enjoyment each at his own house door in village and city and royal capital. Dhamma appeared before them, poised in the air, in his celestial chariot mounted, and adorned with celestial array, in the midst of a multitude of nymphs, and thus addressed them. Take not the life of living creatures, and the other 10 paths of evil-doing eschew. Fulfill the duty of service to mother and the duty of service to father and the threefold course of right. Thus ye shall become destined for heaven, and shall receive great glory. Thus did he urge men to follow the 10 paths of right doing, and made a solemn circuit around India right-wise. But Adhamma taught them, kill that which lives, and in like manner urged men to follow the other 10 paths of evil-doing, and made a circuit around India left-wise. Now their chariots met face to face in the air, and their attendant multitudes asked each the other, Whose are you? And whose are you? They replied, We are of Dhamma, we of Adhamma, and made room so that their paths were divided. But Dhamma said to Adhamma, Good sir, you are Adhamma and I am Dhamma. I have the right of way. Turn your chariot aside and give me way. Repeating the first stanza, I do the right, men's fame is of my grace. Me sages and me Brahmins ever praise. Worshipped of men and gods, the right of way is mine. Right am I? Then, oh wrong, give place. These next follow. In the strong car of wrong enthroned on high. Me mighty there is not can terrify. Then why should I, who never yet gave place, make way today for right to pass me by? Right of a truth was first made manifest. Primeval he, the oldest and the best. Wrong was the younger, later born in time. Way younger, at the elder born's behest. Nor if you worthy be, nor if you pray, nor if it be but fair, will I give way. Here let us two today a battle wage. He shall have place, whoever wins the fray. Known am I in all regions far and near, mighty, of boundless glory, without peer. All virtues are united in my form. Right am I? Wrong. How can you conquer here? By iron gold is beaten, nor do we gold used for beating iron ever see. If wrong gainst right shall win the fight today, iron as beautiful as gold will be. If you indeed are mighty in the fray, though neither good nor wise is what you say, swallow I will all these your evil words, and willy-nilly I will make you way. These 6 stanzas they repeated, one answering the other. But at the very moment when the Bodhisattva repeated this stanza, Adhamma could no longer stand in his car, but head foremost plunged into the earth which gaped to receive him, and was born again in nethermost hell. The Blessed One no sooner perceived this that had happened, than in his perfect wisdom he recited the remaining stanzas. The words no sooner heard, wrong from the height, plunged over heels head foremost out of sight. This was the end and direful fate of wrong. I had no battle, though I longed to fight. Thus by the mighty in forbearance lies, conquered the mighty warrior wrong and dies, swallowed in earth. The other, joyful, strong, truth armored, in his car away he hies, who in his house no due observance pays, to parents, sages, Brahmins when he lays the body down, and bursts its bonds asunder, he even from this world goes straight to hell, even as it Dhamma down head foremost fell, who in his house all due observance pays, to parents, sages, Brahmins when he lays the body down, and bursts its bonds asunder, straight from this world, onward to heaven he hies, as Dhamma in his chariot sought the skies. When the master had ended this discourse, he said, "Not now only, brethren, but in former times also, Devdatta attacked me and was swallowed up in the earth." Then he identified the birth. At that time Devdatta was at Dhamma, and his attendants were the attendants of Devdatta, and I was Dhamma, and the Buddha's attendants were the attendants of Dhamma. Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ikadasanapada. 458. Udaya Jataka. The Flawless, etc. This story the master told, while dwelling in Jetavana, about a backsliding brother. The occasion will be explained under the Kusa birth. Again the master asked the man, "Is it true, brother, that you have backslidden, as they say?" And he replied, "Yes, sir." Then he said, "O brother, why are you backsliding from a religion such as ours, that leads to salvation, and all for fleshly lusts? Wise men of old, who were kings in Suranda, a city prosperous and measuring 12 leagues either way, though for 700 years they abode in one chamber with a woman beauteous as the nymphs divine, yet did not yield to their senses, and never so much as looked at her with desire." So saying, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, when King Kasi was reigning over the realm of Kasi, in Suranda his city, neither son nor daughter had he. So he bade his queens offer prayer for sons. Then the Bodhisattva, passing out of Brahma's world, was conceived in the womb of his chief queen. And because by his birth he cheered the hearts of a great multitude, he received the name of Udayabhata, or welcome. At the time when the lad could walk upon his feet, another being came into this world from the world of Brahma, and became a girl child in the womb of another of this king's wives, and she was named with the same name, Udayabhata. When the prince came of years, he attained a mastery in all branches of education. More, he was chaste to a degree, and knew nothing of the deeds of the flesh, not even in dream, nor was his heart bent on sinfulness. The king desired to make his son king, with the solemn sprinkling, and to arrange plays for his pleasure, and gave command accordingly. But the Bodhisattva replied, "I do not want the kingdom, and my heart is not bent on sinfulness." Again and again he was entreated, but his reply was to have made a woman's image of red gold, which he sent to his parents with the message, "When I find such a woman as this, I will accept the kingdom." This golden image they dispatched over all India, but found no woman like to it. Then they decked out Udayabhata very fine, and confronted her with the image, and her beauty surpassed it as she stood. Then they wedded her to the Bodhisattva for consort, against their wills though it were, his own sister the Princess Udayabhata, born of a different mother, and sprinkled him to be king. These two lived together a life of chastity. In course of time, when his parents were dead, the Bodhisattva ruled the realm. The two dwelt together in one chamber, yet denied their senses, and never so much as looked upon one another in the way of desire. Nay, a promise they even made, that which of them soever should first die, he should return to the other from his place of new birth, and say, "In such a place am I born again." Now from the time of his sprinkling the Bodhisattva lived 700 years, and then he died. Other king there was none, the commands of Udayabhata were promulgated, the courtiers administered the kingdom. The Bodhisattva had become Saka in the heaven of the 33, and by the magnificence of his glory was for 7 days unable to remember the past. So he, after the course of 700 years, according to man's reckoning, remembered and said to himself, "To the king's daughter Udaya I will go, and I will test her with riches, and roaring with the roar of a lion I will discourse, and will fulfill my promise." In that age they say that the length of man's life was 10,000 years. Now at that time, it being the time of night, the palace doors were fast closed, and the guard set, and the king's daughter was sitting quiet and alone, in a magnificent chamber upon the fine terrace of her 7-storied mansion, meditating upon her own virtue. Then Saka took a golden dish filled with coins all of gold, and in her very sleeping chamber appeared before her, and standing on one side, began speech with her by reciting the first stanza. "Thee flawless in thy beauty, pure and bright, thee sitting lonely on this terrace height, in pose most graceful, eyed like nymphs of heaven, I pray thee, let me spend with thee this night." To this the princess made answer in the 2 stanzas following. "To this battlement city, dug with moats, approach is hard, while its trenches and its towers hand and sword unite to guard. Not the young and not the mighty entrance here can lightly gain. Tell me, what can be the reason why to meet me thou art fain?" Then Saka recited the 4th stanza. "I, fair beauty, am a goblin, I that now appear to thee. Grant to me thy favor, lady, this full bowl receive from me." On hearing which the princess replied by repeating the 5th stanza. "I ask for none, since Udaya has died, nor god nor goblin, no nor man, beside. Therefore, O mighty goblin, get thee gone, come no more hither, but far off abide." Hearing her lion's note, he stood not, but made as though to depart, and at once disappeared. Next day at the same hour, he took a silver bowl filled with golden coins and addressed her by repeating the 6th stanza. "That chiefest joy, to lovers known completely, which makes men do full many an evil thing, despise not thou, O lady, smiling sweetly. See, a full bowl of silver here I bring." Then the princess began to think, "If I allow him to talk and prate, he will come again and again. I will have nothing to say to him now." So she said nothing at all. Saka, finding that she had nothing to say, disappeared at once from his place. Next day, at the same time, he took an iron bowl full of coins, and said, "Lady, if you will bless me with your love, I will give this iron bowl full of coins to you." When she saw him, the princess repeated the 7th stanza. "Men that would woo a woman raise and raise the bids of gold, till she their will obeys. The gods' ways differ, as I judge by thee. Thou comest now with less than other days." The great being, when he heard these words, made reply, "Lady princess, I am a wary trader, and I waste not my substance for naught. If you were increasing in youth or beauty, I would also increase the present I offer you. But you are fading, and so I make the offering dwindle also." So saying, he repeated 3 stanzas. "O woman, youthful bloom and beauty fade, within this world of men, thou fair-limbed maid. And thou today art older grown than erst, so dwindles less the sum I would have paid. Thus, glorious daughter of a king, before my gazing eyes, as goes the flight of day and night, thy beauty fades and dies. But if, O daughter of a king most wise, it pleases thee, holy and pure to I endure, more lovely shalt thou be." Hereupon the princess repeated another stanza. "The gods are not like men, they grow not old. Upon their flesh is seen no wrinkled fold. How is the gods have no corporeal frame? This mighty goblin, I would now be told." Then Saka explained the matter by repeating another stanza. "The gods are not like men. They grow not old. Upon their flesh is seen no wrinkled fold. Tomorrow and tomorrow evermore, celestial beauty grows, and bliss untold." When she heard the beauty of the world of gods, she asked the way to go thither in another stanza. "What terrifies so many mortals here? I ask thee, mighty goblin, to make clear that path in such diversity explained. How faring heavenwards need no one fear." Then Saka explained the matter in another stanza. "Who keeps in due control both voice and mind, who with the body loves not sin to do, within whose house much food and drink we find, large-handed, bounteous, in all faith all true, of favors free, soft-tongued, of kindly cheer. He that so walks to heaven need nothing fear. When the princess had heard his words, she rendered thanks in another stanza. Like a mother, like a father, goblin, you admonish me, mighty one, O beauteous being, tell me who you be. Then the Bodhisattva repeated another stanza. I am Udaya, fair lady, for my promise come to thee. Now I go, for I have spoken. From the promise I am free. The princess drew a deep breath and said, You are King Udayabhata, my lord. Then burst into a flood of tears and added, Without you I cannot live. Instruct me, that I may live with you always. So saying, she repeated another stanza. If thou art Udaya, come hither for thy promise. Truly he, then instruct me, that together we, O prince, again may be. Then he repeated 4 stanzas by way of instruction. Youth passes soon. A moment, 'tis gone by. No standing place is firm. All creatures die. To new life born, this fragile frame decays. Then be not careless, walk in piety. If the whole earth with all her wealth could be the realm of one sole king to hold in fee, a holy saint would leave him in the race. Then be not careless, walk in piety. Mother and father, brother, kin, and she, the wife who with a price can purchased be, they go and each the other leave behind. Then be not careless, walk in piety. Remember that this body food shall be for others, joy alike and misery, a passing hour, as life succeeds to life. Then be not careless, walk in piety. In this manner discoursed the great being. The lady, being pleased with the discoursing, rendered thanks in the words of the last stanza. Sweet the saying of this goblin, brief the life that mortals know, sad it is and short, and with it comes inseparable woe. I renounce the world. From Kasi, from Surandana, I go. Having thus discoursed to her, the Bodhisattva went back to his own place. The princess next day entrusted her courtiers with the government, and in that very city of hers, in a delightsome park, she became a recluse. There she lived righteously, until at the end of her days she was born again in the heaven of the 33, as the Bodhisattva's handmaiden. When the master had ended this discourse, he declared the truths and identified the birth. Now at the conclusion of the truths, the backsliding brother was established in the fruit of the first path. At that time Rahula's mother was the princess and Saka was I myself. Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ikatasanapada. 459. Paniya Jataka. The Water Draft, etc. This story the master told, whilst dwelling in Jetavana, about the subduing of evil passions. At one time, we learn, 500 citizens of Savatthi, being householders and friends of the Tathagata, had heard the law and had renounced the world, and been ordained as priests. Living in the house of the golden pavement, at midnight they indulged in thoughts of sin. All the details are to be understood as in a previous story. At the command of the Blessed One, the brotherhood was assembled by the Venerable Ananda. The master sat in the appointed seat, and without asking them, "Do you indulge in thoughts of sin?" he addressed them comprehensively and in general terms. "Brethren, there is no such thing as a petty sin. A brother must check all sins as they each arise. Wise men of old, before the Buddha came, subdued their sins and attained to the knowledge of a Paksika Buddha." With these words, he told there a story of the past. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king in Benares, there were 2 friends in a certain village in the kingdom of Kasi. These had gone afield, taking with them vessels for drinking, which they laid out of the way as they broke the clods, and when they were thirsty, went and drank water out of them. One of them, on going for a drink, husbanded the water in his own pot, and drank out of the pot of the other. In the evening, when he came out from the woodland and had bathed, he stood thinking, "Have I done any sin today?" thought he, "either by the door of the body or any other?" Then he remembered how he drank the stolen water, and grief came upon him, and he cried, "If this thirst grows upon me, it will bring me to some evil birth. I will subdue my sin." So with this stolen draught of water for cause, he gradually acquired supernatural insight and attained the knowledge of a Pacceka Buddha, and there he stood, reflecting upon the knowledge which he had attained. Now the other man, having bathed, got up, saying, "Come, friend, let us go home." Said the other, "Go home thou, home is nothing to me. I am a Pacceka Buddha." "Pooh! Are Pacceka Buddhas like you?" "What are they like, then?" "Hair 2 fingers long, yellow robes they wear. In Nandamula cave they live high up in Himalaya." The other stroked his head. In that very moment the marks of a layman disappeared. A pair of red cloths were wrapped round him. A waistband yellow like a flash of lightning was about him tied. The upper robe of the color of red lac was thrown over one shoulder. A dust heap ragged cloth dingy as a storm cloud lay on his shoulder. A brown earthen bowl dangled from over his left shoulder. There he stood poised in mid-air, and having delivered a discourse, he rose and descended not until he came to the mountain cave of Nandamula. Another man, who also lived in a village of Kasi, a landowner, was sitting in the bazaar, when he saw a man approach leading his wife. Seeing her, and she was a woman of surpassing beauty, he broke the moral principles and looked upon her. Then again he thought, "This desire, if it increases, will cast me into some evil birth." Being exercised in mind, he developed supernatural insight and attained the knowledge of a Pacceka Buddha. Then, poised in the air, he delivered a discourse, and he also went to the Nandamula cave. Villagers of a place in Kasi were likewise two, a father and a son, who were going on a journey together. At the entering in of a forest were robbers posted. These robbers, if they took a father and son together, would keep the son with them and send the father away, saying, "Bring back a ransom for your son." Or if 2 brothers, they kept the younger and sent the elder away. Or if teacher and pupil, they kept the teacher and sent the pupil. And the pupil for love of learning would bring money and release his teacher. Now when this father and son saw the robbers lying in wait, the father said, "Don't you call me father, and I will not call you son." And so they agreed. So when the robbers came up and asked how they stood to one another, they replied, "We are nothing to one another," thus telling a premeditated lie. When they came out of the forest and were resting after the evening bath, the son examined his own virtue, and remembering this lie, he thought, "This sin, if it increases, will plunge me in some evil birth. I will subdue my sin." Then he developed supernatural insight and attained to the knowledge of a Pacceka Buddha, and poised in the air delivered a discourse to his father, and he too went to the Nandamula cave. In a village of Kasi also lived a zemindar, who laid an interdict upon all slaughter. Now when the time came when offering was wont to be made to the spirits, a great crowd gathered and said, "My lord, this is the time for sacrifice. Let us slay deer and swine and other animals, and make offering to the goblins." He replied, "Do as you have done aforetime." The people made a great slaughter. The man, seeing a great quantity of fish and flesh, thought to himself, "All these living creatures the men have slain, and all because of my word alone." He repented, and as he stood by the window, he developed supernatural insight and attained to the knowledge of a Pacceka Buddha, and poised in the air delivered a discourse. Then he too went to the Nandamula cave. Another zemindar who lived in the kingdom of Kasi prohibited the sale of strong drink. A crowd of people cried out to him, "My lord, what shall we do? It is the time-honored drinking festival." He replied, "Do as you have always done aforetime." The people made their festival and drank strong drink and fell a-quarreling. There were broken legs and arms and cracked crowns and ears torn off, and many a penalty was inflicted for it. The zemindar, seeing this, thought to himself, "If I had not permitted this, they would not have suffered this misery." Even for this trifle he felt remorse. Then he developed supernatural insight and attained the knowledge of a Pacceka Buddha. Poised in the air he discoursed, and bade them be vigilant. Then he too went to the Nandamula cave. Some time afterwards, The 5 Paksika Buddhas all alighted at the gate of Benares, seeking for alms. Their upper robe and lower robe neatly arranged, with gracious address they went on their rounds, and came to the gate of the king's palace. The king was much pleased to behold them. He invited them into his palace and washed their feet, anointed them with fragrant oil, set before them savory food both hard and soft, and sitting on one side, thus addressed them, "Sirs, that you in your youth have embraced the ascetic life is beautiful. At this age you have become ascetics, and you see the misery of evil lusts. What was the cause of your action?" They replied as follows, "The water draught of my own friend, although a friend I stole. Loathing the sin which I had done, I afterwards was fain to leave the world, an eremite, lest I should sin again. I looked upon another's wife. Lust rose within my soul. Loathing the sin which I had done, I afterwards was fain to leave the world, an eremite, lest I should sin again. Thieves caught my father in a wood, to whom I did forth tell that he was other than he was, a lie I knew it well, loathing the sin," etc. The people at a drinking feast full many beasts did kill, and not against my will, loathing the sin, etc. Those persons who in former times of liquors drank their fill, now carried out a drinking bout, whence many suffered ill, and not against my will, loathing the sin which I had done, I afterwards was fain to leave the world, an eremite, lest I should sin again. These 5 stanzas they repeated one after the other. When the king had heard the explanation of each, he uttered his praise, saying, "Sirs, your asceticism becomes you well." The king was delighted at the discourse of these men. He bestowed upon them cloth for outer and inner garments, and medicines. Then let the Paksika Buddhas go away. They thanked him and returned to the place whence they came. Ever after that the king loathed the pleasures of sense, was free from desire, ate his choice and dainty food, but to women he would not speak, would not look at them, rose up disgusted at heart and retired to his magnificent chamber, and there he sat, stared at a white wall until he fell into a trance, and conceived within him the rapture of mystic meditation. In this rapture rapt, he recited a stanza in dispraise of desire. Out on it, out on lust, I say, unsavory thorn beset. Never, though long I followed wrong, such joy as this I met. Then his chief queen thought to herself, that king heard the discoursing of the Paksika Buddhas, and now he never speaks to us, but buries himself despondent in his magnificent chamber. I must take him in hand. So she came to the door of that lordly chamber, and standing at the door, heard the king's rapturous utterances, in dispraise of desire. She said, "O mighty king, you speak ill of desire, but there is no joy like the joy of sweet desire." Then in praise of desire she repeated another stanza. Great is the joy of sweet desire, no greater joy than love. Who follow this attain the bliss of paradise above. Hearing this, the king made reply, "Perish, vile jade! What sayst thou? Whence comes the joy of desire? There are miseries which come to pay for it." With which he uttered the remaining stanzas in dispraise. Ill-tasting, painful is desire. There is no worser woe. Who follow sin are sure to win the pains of hell below. Than sword well whetted, or a blade implacable, a thirst, than knives deep driven in the heart, desires are more accursed. A pit as deep as men are tall, where live coals blazing are, a plowshare heated in the sun, desires are worser far. A poison very venomous, an oil of little ease, or that vile thing to copper clings, desires are worse than these. Thus the great being discoursed to his consort. Then he gathered his courtiers and said, "O courtiers, do you manage the kingdom? I am about to renounce the world." Amidst the wailing and lamentation of a great multitude, he rose before them, and poised in the air, delivered a discourse. Then along the path of the wind he passed to furthest Himalaya, and in a delightsome spot builded a hermitage. There he lived the life of a sage, until at the end of his days he became destined for the world of Brahma. The master, having ended this discourse, added, "Brethren, there is no such thing as a petty sin. the very smallest must be checked by a wise man. Then he declared the truths and identified the birth. Now at the conclusion of the truths, the 500 brethren became established in sainthood. At that time the Paksika Buddhas attained nirvana, Rahila's mother was the queen consort, and I myself was the king. Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ikadasanapada. 460. Yuvanajaya Jataka. I greet the Lord, etc. This story the master told while dwelling in Jetavana about the great renunciation. One day the brethren had assembled in the hall of truth. Brother, one would say to his fellow, the Dasabala might have dwelt in a house. He might have been an universal monarch in the center of the great world, possessed of the 7 precious things, glorious with the 4 supernatural faculties, surrounded with sons more than 1,000. Yet all this magnificence he renounced when he perceived the bane that lies in desires. At midnight, with Channa in company, he mounted his horse Kanthaka and departed. On the banks of Anoma, the river glorious, he renounced the world, and for 6 years he tormented himself with austerities, and then attained to perfect wisdom. Thus talked they of the Buddha's virtues. The master entering asked, "What are you speaking of now, brethren, as ye sit here?" They told him. Said the master, "This is not the first time, brethren, that the Tathagata has made the great renunciation. In days of yore he retired and gave up the kingdom of Benares city, which was 12 leagues in extent." So saying, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time a king named Sabadatta reigned in the city of Rama. The place which we now call Benares is named Surandana city in the Udaya birth, and Sudasana in the Kalasudasoma birth, and Brahmavadadana in the Sanandana birth, and Papavati in the Kandahala birth. But in this Yuvanajaya birth it is named Rama city. In this manner its name changes on each several occasion. At that time the king Sabadatta had 1,000 sons, and to his eldest son Yuvanjana he gave the viceroyalty. One day early in the morning he mounted his splendid chariot, and in great pomp went to disport him in the park. On the treetops, on the grass tips, at the ends of the branches, on all the spiders' webs and threads, on the points of the rushes, he saw the dewdrops hanging like so many strings of pearls. "Friend charioteer," quoth he, "what is this?" "This, my lord," he replied, "is what falls in the cold weather, and they call it dew." The prince took his pleasure in the park for a portion of the day. In the evening, as he was returning home, he could see none of it. "Friend charioteer," said he, "where are the dewdrops? I do not see them now." "My lord," said the other, "as the sun rises higher, they all melt and sink into the ground." On hearing this, the prince was distressed and said, "The life of us living beings is fashioned like dewdrops on the grass. I must be rid of the oppression of disease, old age, and death. I must take leave of my parents and renounce the world." So because of the dewdrops, he perceived the 3 modes of existence as it were in a blazing fire. When he came home, he went into the presence of his father in his magnificent hall of judgment, and greeting his father, he stood on one side and repeated the first stanza, asking his leave to renounce the world. "I greet the Lord of charioteers with friends and courtiers by the world, O king, I would renounce. Let not my lord deny." Then the king repeated the second stanza, dissuading him, "If aught thou crave, Yuvanjana, I will fulfill it quite. If any hurt thee, I protect. Be thou no eremite." Hearing this, the prince recited the third stanza, "No man there is that does me harm. My wishes nothing lack. But I would seek a refuge, where old age makes no attack." By way of explaining this matter, the master uttered a half stanza. The son speaks to his father thus, the father to his son. The remaining half stanza was uttered by the king. "Leave not the world, O prince. So cry the townsfolk everyone. The prince again repeated this stanza. Oh, do not from the unworldly life, great monarch, make me stay, lest I, intoxicate with lusts, to age become a prey. This said, the king hesitated. Then the mother was told, your son, my lady, is asking his father's leave to renounce the world. What do you say? She asked, took her breath away. Seated in her litter of gold, she went swiftly to the hall of judgment, and repeating the sixth stanza, asked, I beg thee, it is I, my dear, and I would make thee stay. Long wish I thee, my son, to see. Oh, do not go away. On hearing which the prince repeated the seventh stanza. Like as the dew upon the grass, when the sun rises hot, so is the life of mortal men. O mother, stay me not. When he had said this, she begged him again and again to the same effect. Then the great being addressed his father in the eighth stanza. Let those that bear this litter lift. Let not my mother stay. Me, mighty king, from entering upon my holy way. When the king heard his son's words, he said, Go, lady, in your litter, back to our palace of perennial delight. At his words her feet failed her, and surrounded with her company of women, she departed, and entered the palace, and stood looking towards the hall of judgment, and wondering what news of her son. After his mother's departure, the Bodhisattva again asked leave of his father. The king could not refuse him, and said, Have thy will, then, dear son, and renounce the world. When this consent was gained, the Bodhisattva's youngest brother, Prince Udaya, greeted his father, and likewise asked leave to follow the religious life, and the king consented. Both brothers bade their father farewell, and having now renounced worldly lusts departed from the hall of judgment, amidst a great company of people. The queen, looking upon the great being, cried weeping, My son has renounced the world, and the city of Rama will be empty. Then she repeated a couple of stanzas. Make haste, and bless thee. Empty now is Ramaka, I trow. King Sabadatta has allowed Yuvanajaya to go. The eldest of 1,000, he, like gold to look upon. This mighty prince has left the world the yellow robe to don. The Bodhisattva did not at once embrace the religious life. No, he first bade farewell to his parents. Then taking with him his youngest brother, Prince Udaya, he left the city, and sending back the great multitude which followed them, they both made their way to Himalaya. There, in a delightsome spot, they built a hermitage, and embraced the life of a holy sage, and cultivating the transcendent rapture of meditation. They lived all their lives long upon the fruits and roots of the forest, and became destined for the world of Brahma. This matter is explained in the stanza of perfect wisdom which comes last. Yuvanajaya, Udaya in holy life remain. Their father and their mother left. They break in two death's chain. When the master had ended this discourse, he said, This is not the first time, brethren, that the Tathagata renounced a kingdom to follow the religious life, but it was the same before. Then he identified the birth. At that time members of the present king's family were the father and mother. Ananda was Udaya, and I was Yuvanajaya myself. Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ikatasanapada. 461. Dasaratha Jataka. Let Lakkhana, etc. This story the master told in Jetavana about a landowner whose father was dead. This man on his father's death was overwhelmed with sorrow. Leaving all his duties undone, he gave himself up to his sorrow wholly. The master at dawn of day, looking out upon mankind, perceived that he was ripe for attaining the fruit of the first path. Next day, after going his rounds for alms and savatthi, his meal done, he dismissed the brethren, and taking with him a junior brother, went to this man's house and gave him greeting, and addressed him as he sat there in words of honey sweetness. You are in sorrow, lay brother? Said he. Yes, sir, afflicted with sorrow for my father's sake, said the master. Lay brother, wise men of old who exactly knew the 8 conditions of this world, felt at a father's death no grief, not even a little. Then, at his request, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, at Benares, a great king named Dasaratha renounced the ways of evil and reigned in righteousness. Of his 16,000 wives, the eldest and queen consort bore him 2 sons and a daughter. The elder son was named Rama Pandita, or Rama the Wise, the second was named Prince Lakana, or Lucky, and the daughter's name was the Lady Sita. In course of time, the queen consort died. At her death, the king was for a long time crushed by sorrow, but urged by his courtiers he performed her obsequies, and set another in her place as queen consort. She was dear to the king and beloved. In time she also conceived, and all due attention having been given her, she brought forth a son, and they named him Prince Bharata. The king loved his son much, and said to the queen, "Lady, I offer you a boon, choose." She accepted the offer, but put it off for the time. When the lad was 7 years old, she went to the king and said to him, "My lord, you promised a boon for my son. Will you give it me now?" "Choose, lady," said he. "My lord," quoth she, "give my son the kingdom." The king snapped his fingers at her. "Out, vile jade," said he angrily. "My other 2 sons shine like blazing fires. Would you kill them and ask the kingdom for a son of yours?" She fled in terror to her magnificent chamber, and on other days again and again asked the king for this. The king would not give her this gift. He thought within himself, "Women are ungrateful and treacherous. This woman might use a forged letter or a treacherous bribe to get my sons murdered." So he sent for his sons and told them all about it, saying, "My sons, if you live here some mischief may befall you. Go to some neighboring kingdom or to the woodland, and when my body is burnt, then return and inherit the kingdom which belongs to your family." Then he summoned soothsayers and asked them the limits of his own life. They told him he would live yet 12 years longer. Then he said, "Now, my sons, after 12 years you must return and uplift the umbrella of royalty." They promised, and after taking leave of their father, went forth from the palace weeping. The Lady Sita said, "I too will go with my brothers." She bade her father farewell and went forth weeping. These 3 departed amidst a great company of people. They sent the people back and proceeded until at last they came to Himalaya. There, in a spot well watered and convenient for the getting of wild fruits, they built a hermitage and there lived, feeding upon the wild fruits. Lakana Pandita and Sita said to Rama Pandita, "You are in place of a father to us. Remain then in the hut and we will bring wild fruit and feed you." He agreed. Thenceforward Rama Pandita stayed where he was, the others brought the wild fruit and fed him with it. Thus they lived there, feeding upon the wild fruit. But King Dasaratha pined after his sons, and died in the 9th year. When his obsequies were performed, the queen gave orders that the umbrella should be raised over her son, Prince Bharata. But the courtiers said, "The lords of the umbrella are dwelling in the forest, and they would not allow it." Said Prince Bharata, "I will fetch back my brother Ramapandita from the forest, and raise the royal umbrella over him." Taking the 5 emblems of royalty, he proceeded with a complete host of the 4 arms to their dwelling place. Not far away he caused camp to be pitched, and then with a few courtiers he visited the hermitage, at the time when Lakana Pandita and Sita were away in the woods. At the door of the hermitage sat Rama Pandita, undismayed and at ease, like a figure of fine gold firmly set. The prince approached him with a greeting and standing on one side, told him of all that had happened in the kingdom, and falling at his feet along with the courtiers, burst into weeping. Rama Pandita neither sorrowed nor wept. Emotion in his mind was none. When Bharata had finished weeping and sat down, towards evening the other 2 returned with wild fruits. Rama Pandita thought, "These 2 are young, all-comprehending wisdom like mine is not theirs. If they are told on a sudden that our father is dead, the pain will be greater than they can bear, and who knows but their hearts may break. I will persuade them to go down into the water and find a means of disclosing the truth." Then pointing out to them a place in front where there was water, he said, "You have been out too long. Let this be your penance. Go into that water and stand there." Then he repeated a half stanza. "Let Lakana and Sita both into that pond descend. One word sufficed, into the water they went and stood there. Then he told them the news by repeating the other half stanza. Bharata says, King Dasaratha's life is at an end. When they heard the news of their father's death, they fainted. Again he repeated it, again they fainted, and when even a third time they fainted away, the courtiers raised them and brought them out of the water, and set them upon dry ground. When they had been comforted, they all sat weeping and wailing together. Then Prince Bharata thought, my brother Prince Lakkhana and my sister the Lady Sita cannot restrain their grief to hear of our father's death. But Rama Pandita neither wails nor weeps. I wonder what can the reason be that he grieves not? I will ask. Then he repeated the second stanza, asking the question, say by what power thou grievest not, Rama, when grief should be. Though it is said thy sire is dead, grief overwhelms not thee. Then Rama Pandita explained the reason of his feeling no grief by saying, when man can never keep a thing, though loudly he may cry, why should a wise intelligence torment itself thereby? The young in years, the older grown, the fool and eke the wise, for rich, for poor one end is sure, each man among them dies. As sure as for the ripened fruit there comes the fear of fall, so surely comes the fear of death to mortals one and all. Who in the morning light are seen by evening oft are gone, and seen at evening time is gone by morning many a one. If to a fool infatuate a blessing could accrue, when he torments himself with tears, the wise the same would do. By this tormenting of himself he waxes thin and pale. This cannot bring the dead to life, and nothing tears avail. Even as a blazing house may be put out with water, so the strong, the wise, the intelligent, who well the scriptures know, scatter their grief like cotton when the stormy winds do blow. One mortal dies, to kindred ties born is another straight. Each creature's bliss dependent is on ties associate. The strong man therefore, skilled in sacred text, keen contemplating this world and the next, knowing their nature not by any grief, however great in mind and heart is vexed. So to my kindred I will give, them will I keep and feed, all that remain I will maintain. Such is the wise man's deed. In these stanzas he explained the impermanence of things. When the company heard this discourse of Rama Pandita, illustrating the doctrine of impermanence, they lost all their grief. Then Prince Bharata saluted Rama Pandita, begging him to receive the kingdom of Benares. Brother, said Rama, take Lakkhana and Sita with you, and administer the kingdom yourselves. No, my lord, you take it. Brother, my father commanded me to receive the kingdom at the end of 12 years. If I go now, I shall not carry out his bidding. After 3 more years I will come. Who will carry on the government all that time? You do it. I will not. Then until I come, these slippers shall do it, said Rama, and doffing his slippers of straw he gave them to his brother. So these 3 persons took the slippers, and bidding the wise man farewell, went to Benares with their great crowd of followers. For 3 years the slippers ruled the kingdom. The courtiers placed these straw slippers upon the royal throne, when they judged a cause. If the cause were decided wrongly, the slippers beat upon each other, and at that sign it was examined again. When the decision was right, the slippers lay quiet. When the 3 years were over, the wise man came out of the forest, and came to Benares and entered the park. The princes, hearing of his arrival, proceeded with a great company to the park, and making Sita the queen consort, gave to them both the ceremonial sprinkling. The sprinkling thus performed, the great being standing in a magnificent chariot, and surrounded by a vast company, entered the city, making a solemn circuit right wise. Then mounting to the great terrace of his splendid palace Sukandaka, he reigned there in righteousness for 16,000 years, and then went to swell the hosts of heaven. This stanza of perfect wisdom explains the upshot. Years 60 times 100 and 10,000 more, all told, reigned strong-armed Rama, on his neck the lucky triple fold. The master, having ended this discourse, declared the truths and identified the birth. Now at the conclusion of the truths, the landowner was established in the fruit of the first path. At that time the king Sudhadana was King Dasaratha, Mahamaya was the mother, Rahula's mother was Sita, Ananda was Bharata, and I myself was Rama Pandita. Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ikatasanapada. 462. Samvara Jataka. Your nature, mighty monarch, etc. This story the master told while dwelling in Jetavana, about a brother who had ceased to strive. This, we learn, was a young man of family who lived in Savatthi. Having heard the master's discoursing, he renounced the world. Fulfilling the tasks imposed by his teachers and preceptors, he learnt by heart both divisions of the Padamaka. When 5 years were past, he said, "When I have been instructed in the mode of attaining the mystic trance, I will go dwell in the forest." Then he took leave of his teachers and preceptors, and proceeded to a frontier village in the kingdom of Kosala. The people were pleased with his deportment, and he made a hut of leaves and there was attended to. Entering upon the rainy season, zealous, eager, striving in strenuous endeavor, he strove after the mystic trance for the space of 3 months. But of this not a trace could he produce. Then he thought, "Verily I am the most devoted to worldly conditions among the 4 classes of men taught by the Master. What have I to do with living in the forest?" Then he said to himself, "I will return to Jetavana, and there in beholding the beauty of the Tathagata, and hearing his discourse sweet as honey, I will pass my days." So he relaxed his striving, and setting forth he came in course of time to Jetavana. His preceptors and teachers, his friends and acquaintances asked him the cause of his coming. He informed them and they reproved him for it, asking him why he had so done. Then they led him into the master's presence. "Why, brethren," said the master, "do you lead hither a brother against his will?" They replied, "This brother has come hither because he has relaxed his striving." "Is this true as they tell me?" asked the master. "Yes, sir," said the man. Said the master, "Why have you ceased to strive, brother? For a weak and slothful man there is in this religion no high fruition, no sainthood. They only who make strenuous effort accomplish this. In days long gone by you were full of strength, easy to teach, and in this way, though the youngest of all the 100 sons of the king of Benares, by holding fast to the admonition of wise men you obtained the white umbrella." So saying, he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, when Brahmadatta was king in Benares, the youngest of his 100 sons was named Prince Samvara. The king gave his sons in charge each of a separate courtier, with directions to teach them each what they ought to learn. The courtier who instructed the Prince Samvara was the Bodhisattva, wise, learned, filling a father's place to the king's son. As each of the sons was educated, the courtiers brought them for the king to see. The king gave them each a province, and let them go. When the Prince Samvara had been perfected in all learning, he asked the Bodhisattva, "Dear father, if my father sends me to a province, what am I to do?" He replied, "My son, when a province is offered you, you should refuse it and say, 'My lord, I am the youngest of all. If I go too, there will be no one about your feet. I will remain where I am at your feet." Then one day, when Prince Samvara had saluted him, and was standing on one side, the king asked him, "Well, my son, have you finished your learning?" "Yes, my lord." "Choose a province." "My lord, there will be emptiness about your feet. Let me remain here at your feet, and in no other place." The king was pleased, and consented. After that he remained there at the king's feet, and again asked the Bodhisattva, "What else am I to do, father?" "Ask the king," said he. "For some old park." The prince complied and asked for a park. With the fruits and flowers that there grew, he made friends with the powerful men in the city. Again he asked what he was to do. "Ask the king's leave, my son," said the Bodhisattva, "to distribute the food money within the city." So he did, and without the least neglect of any person, he distributed the food money within the city. Again he asked the Bodhisattva's advice, and after soliciting the king's consent, distributed food within the palace to the servitors and the horses and to the army, without any omission. To messengers come from foreign countries he assigned their lodging and so forth. For merchants he fixed the taxes. All that had to be arranged he did alone. Thus, following the advice of the great being, he made friends with everybody, those in the household and those without, all in the city, the subjects of the kingdom, strangers, by his winsomeness binding them to him as it were by a band of iron. To all of them he was dear and beloved. When in due time the king lay on his deathbed, the courtiers asked him, "When you are dead, my lord, to whom shall we give the white umbrella?" "Friends," said he, "all my sons have a right to the white umbrella, but you may give it to him that pleases your mind." So after his death, and when the obsequies had been performed, on the 7th day they gathered together and said, "Our king bade us give the umbrella to him that pleases our mind. He that our mind desires is Prince Samvara. Over him therefore they uplifted the white umbrella with its festoons of gold, escorted by his kinsmen. The great king Samvara, cleaving to the advice of the Bodhisattva, reigned in righteousness. The other 99 princes heard that their father was dead, and that the umbrella had been uplifted over Samvara. "But he is the youngest of all," said they. "The umbrella does not belong to him. Let us uplift the umbrella over the eldest of us all." They all joined forces and sent a letter to Samvara, bidding him resign the umbrella or fight. Then they surrounded the city. The king told this news to the Bodhisattva and asked what he was to do now. He answered, "Great king, you must not fight with your brothers. Divide the treasure belonging to your father into 100 portions, and to your brothers send 99 of them with this message: accept this share of your father's treasure, for fight with you I will not." So he did. Then the eldest of all the brothers, Prince Upasatha by name, summoned the rest together and said to them, "Friends, there is no one able to overcome the king, and this our youngest brother, though he has been our enemy, does not remain so, but he sends us his wealth and refuses to fight with us. Now we cannot all uplift the umbrella at the same moment. Let us uplift it over one only, and let him alone be king. So when we see him, we will hand over the royal treasure to him and return to our own provinces." Then all these princes raised the siege of the city, and entered it, foes no longer. And the king told his courtiers to welcome them, and sent them to meet the princes. The princes with a great following entered on foot, and mounting the steps of the palace, and using all humility towards the great king Samvara, sat down in a lowly place. King Samvara was seated under the white umbrella upon a throne. Great magnificence was his and great pomp. What place soever he looked upon trembled and quaked. Prince Upasatha, seeing the magnificence of the mighty king Samvara, thought to himself, "Our father, methinks, knew that Prince Samvara would be king after his decease, and therefore gave us provinces and gave him none." Then addressing him, repeated 3 stanzas. "Your nature, mighty monarch, sure the lord of men well knew. The other princes honored he, but nothing gave to you. While the king lived was it, or when a god to heaven he went, that seeing their own benefit your kinsmen gave consent? Say by what power, O Samvara, you stand above your kin? Why do your brethren not unite from you the place to win?" On hearing this, King Samvara repeated 6 stanzas to explain his own character. "Because, O prince, I never grudge great sages what is meet. Ready to pay them honor due, I fall before their feet. Me envying none, and apt to learn all conduct meet and right. Wise sages each good precept teach in which they take delight. I listen to the bidding of these sages great and wise. My heart is bent to good intent, no counsel I despise. Elephant troops and chariot men, guard royal, infantry, I took no toll of daily dole, but paid them all their fee. Great nobles and wise counselors waiting on me are found, with food, wine, water, so they boast, Benares doth abound. Thus merchants prosper, and from many a realm they come and go, and I protect them. Now the truth, Upasatha, you know." Prince Upasatha listened to this account of his character, and then repeated 2 stanzas. "Then be above your kith and kin, and rule in righteousness. So wise and prudent, Samvara, your brethren you shall bless. Your treasure heaps your brethren will defend, and you shall be safe from your foes as Indra's self from his arch-enemy." King Samvara gave great honor to all his brothers. They remained with him a month and half a month. Then they said to him, "Great king, we would go and see if there be any brigands afoot in our provinces. All happiness to your rule." They departed each to his province. And the king abode by the admonition of the Bodhisattva, and at the end of his days went to swell the hosts of heaven. The master, having finished this discourse, added, "Long ago, brother, you followed instruction, and why do you not now sustain your effort?" Then he declared the truths and identified the birth. Now at the conclusion of the truths this brother was established in the fruit of the first path. At that time this brother was the great king Samvara, Sariputta was Prince Upasatha, the elders and secondary elders were the other brothers, the Buddha's followers were their followers, and I myself was the courtier who advised the king. Stories of the Buddha's Former Births. Book 11 Ikatasanapada. 463. Supparaka Jataka. Men with razor pointed, etc. This story the master told while dwelling at Jetavana about the perfection of knowledge. One day, we are told, at evening, the brethren were awaiting the coming of the Tathagata to preach to them, and as they sat in the hall of truth, they were saying one to another, "Verily, brother, the master has great wisdom, wide wisdom, ready wisdom, swift wisdom, sharp wisdom, penetrating wisdom. His wisdom hits on the right plan for the right moment. Wide as the world, like a mighty ocean unfathomable, as the heavens spread abroad. In all India no wise man exists who can match the Dasabala. As a billow that rises upon the great sea cannot reach the shore, or if it reaches the shore it breaks. So no man can reach the Dasabala in wisdom, or if he comes to the master's feet he is broken." In these words they sang the praises of the Dasabala's perfect wisdom. The master came in and asked, "What are you talking of, brethren, as you sit here?" They told him. He said, "Not now only is the Tathagata full of wisdom. In former days, even when his knowledge was immature, he was wise. Blind though he was, he knew by the signs of the ocean that in the ocean such and such a jewel was hid." Then he told a story of the past. Once upon a time, a king named Beru reigned in the kingdom of Beru. There was a seaport town named Barakacha, or the Marsh of Beru. At that time the Bodhisattva was born into the family of a master mariner there. Amiable he was, and of complexion a golden brown. They gave him the name of Supparaka Kumara. He grew up with great distinction, and even when he was no more than 16 years old, he had gained a complete mastery over the art of seamanship. Afterwards, when his father died, he became the head of the mariners and plied the mariners' calling. Wise he was and full of intelligence. With him aboard, no ship came ever to harm. In time it so happened that, injured by the salt water, both his eyes lost their sight. After which, head of the mariners though he was, he plied no more the mariners' trade. But resolved to live in the king's service, he approached the king to that end. And the king appointed him to the office of valuer and assessor. From that time he assessed the worth of valuable elephants, valuable horses, choice pearls and gems. One day an elephant was brought to the king, of the color of a black rock, that he might be the state elephant. The king gave him a glance, and commanded that he be shown to the wise man. They led the creature before him. The man passed his hand over the elephant's body and said, "This elephant is not fit to be the elephant of state. This has the qualities of an elephant that is deformed behind." When his dam brought him forth, she could not take him on her shoulder. So she let him fall on the ground, and thus he became deformed in his hind feet. They questioned those who had brought the elephant, and they replied that the wise man spoke the truth. When the king heard of this, he was pleased, and ordered 8 pieces of money to be given him. On another day, a horse was brought for the king's horse of state. This too was sent to the wise man. He felt it all over with his hand, and then said, "This is not fit to be the king's state charger." On the day this horse was born, his dam died, and so for lack of the mare's milk he did not grow properly. This saying of his was true also. When the king heard of it, he was pleased, and caused him to be presented with 8 pieces more. Another day, a chariot was brought, to be the king's state chariot. This too the king sent to him. He felt it over with his hand and said, "This chariot was made out of a hollow tree, and therefore it is not fit for the king." This saying of his was true like the others. The king was pleased again when he heard of it, and gave him other 8 pieces. Then again they brought him a precious rug of great price, which the king sent to the man as before. He felt it all over and said, "There is one place here where a rat has bitten a hole." They examined and found the place, and then told the king. Pleased was the king, and ordered 8 pieces to be given him again. Now the man thought, "Only 8 pieces of money, with such marvels as these to see. This is a barber's gift. This king must be a barber's brat. Why should I serve such a king? I will return to my own home." So back he went to the seaport of Barakacha, and there he lived. It happened that some merchants had got ready a ship, and were casting about for a skipper. "That clever Supparaka," thought they, "is a wise and skillful man. With him aboard no ship comes to harm. Blind though he be, the wise Supparaka is the best." So to him they repaired, and asked him to be their skipper. "Blind am I, friends," he replied, "and how can I sail your ship?" "Blind you may be, master," said the merchants, "but you are the best." As they pressed him unceasingly, he at length consented. "As you put it to me," says he, "I will be your skipper." Then he went aboard their vessel. They sailed in their ship upon the high seas. For 7 days the ship sailed without mishap. Then an unseasonable wind arose. For months the vessel tossed about on a primeval ocean, until she arrived at what is called the Koramala Sea. Here fish with bodies like men, and sharp razor-like snouts, dive in and out of the water. The merchants observing these asked the great being what that sea was named, repeating the first stanza. "Men with razor-pointed noses rising up and diving down. Speak, Supparaka, and tell us by what name this sea is known." The great being, at this question, conning over in mind his mariner's lore, answered by repeating the second stanza. "Merchants come from Barakacha, seeking riches to purvey. This is Koramali Ocean where your ship has gone astray. Now it happens that in this ocean diamonds are to be found." The great being reflected that if he told them this was a diamond sea, they would sink the ship in their greed by collecting the diamonds. So he told them nothing, but having brought the ship to, he got a rope and lowered a net as if to catch fish. With this he brought in a haul of diamonds and stored them in the ship. Then he caused the wares of little value to be cast overboard. The ship passed over this sea and came to another called Ajamala. This sea sent forth a radiance like a blazing bonfire, like the sun at midday. The merchants questioned him in this stanza. "Lo, an ocean like a bonfire blazing, like the sun, we see. Speak, Supparaka, and tell us what the name of this may be." The great being replied to them in the stanza next following. "Merchants come from Barakacha, seeking riches to purvey. This is Ajamali Ocean where your ship has gone astray. Now in this sea was abundance of gold. In the same manner as before, he got a haul of gold from it and laid it aboard. Passing over the sea, the ship next came to an ocean called Didhimala, gleaming like milk or curds. The merchants inquired its same in a stanza. Lo, an ocean white and milky, white as curds we seem to see. Speak, Supparaka, and tell us what the name of this may be. The great being answered them by the stanza next following. Merchants come from Barakacha, seeking riches to purvey. This is Dadamali Ocean where your ship has gone astray. In this sea there was abundance of silver. He procured it in the same way as before and laid it aboard. Over the sea the ship sailed, and came to an ocean called Nilavanakusamala, which had the appearance of a stretch of dark kusa grass, or a field of corn. The merchants inquired its name in a stanza. Lo, an ocean green and grassy, like young corn we seem to see. Speak, Supparaka, and tell us what the name of this may be. He replied in the words of the stanza next following. Merchants come from Barakacha, seeking riches to purvey. This is Kuzamali Ocean where your ship has gone astray. Now in this ocean was a great quantity of precious emeralds. As before, he made a haul of them and stored them on board. Passing over this sea, the ship came to a sea called Nalamala, which had the aspect of an expanse of reeds or a grove of bamboos. The merchants asked its name in a stanza. Lo, an ocean like a reed bed, like a bamboo grove we see. Speak, Supparaka, and tell us what the name of this may be." The great being replied by the following stanza. "Merchants come from Bharakacha, seeking riches to purvey. This is Nalamali ocean where your ship has gone astray." Now this ocean was full of coral of the color of bamboos. He made a haul of this also and got it aboard. After passing the Nalamali Sea, the merchants came to a sea named Valabhamukha. Here the water is sucked away and rises on every side, and the water thus sucked away on all sides rises in sheer precipices, leaving what looks like a great pit. A wave rises on one side like a wall. A terrific roar is heard, which seems as it would burst the ear and break the heart. On sight of this, the merchants were terrified, and asked its name in a stanza. Hear the awful sound terrific of a huge unearthly sea, lo a pit, and to the waters in a steep declivity. Speak, Supparaka, and tell us what the name of this may be." The Bodhisattva replied in this following stanza, "Merchants, etc., ending, this Valabhamukhi ocean, etc." He went on, "Friends, once a ship has got into the Valabhamukha Sea, there is no returning. If this ship gets there, she will sink and go to destruction. Now there were 700 souls aboard this ship, and they were in fear of death. With one voice they uttered a very bitter cry, like the cry of those who are burning in the lowest hell. The great being thought, except me, no other can save those. I will save them by an act of truth." Then he said aloud, "Friends, bathe me speedily in scented water, and put new garments upon me. Prepare a full bowl, and set me in front of the ship." They quickly did so. The great being took the full bowl in both hands, and standing in the front of the ship, performed an act of truth, repeating the final stanza. "Since I can myself remember, since intelligence first grew, not one life of living creature have I taken, that I knew. May this ship return to safety if my solemn words are true." For months the vessel had been voyaging in far distant regions, and now, as though endued with supernatural power, it returned in one single day to the seaport town of Bharakacha, and even upon the dry land it went, till it rested before the mariner's door, having sprung over a space of 1100 cubits. The great being divided amongst the merchants all the gold and silver, jewels, coral, and diamonds, saying, "This treasure is enough for you. Voyage on the sea no more." Then he discoursed to them, and after giving gifts and doing good his life long, he went to swell the hosts of heaven. The master, having ended this discourse, said, "Then, brethren, the Tathagata was most wise in former days, as he is now, and identified the birth. At that time the Buddha's company were the company of merchants, and I myself was the wise Supparaka.